Good evening and welcome to another edition of What a Week right here on MediaNet Live TV with myself, Mr. C, and of course my co-host, Mr. Tony Crossbody, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, good evening, Mr. C. Good evening, viewers. How we doing? See?
We're all good, man. We're all good. So please, ladies and...
Notice that we're in the bright colours tonight.
Come on, mate. Come on. You know what I mean? Got to be done, man.
I know you've got particularly good reasons to be happy because your team, Chelsea, are the winners of the Champions League. Wow.
Chip you, Nate. Chip you. And anyway, no need to do that. What is important? What is important is for our viewers to like, subscribe, and to share this wonderful platform called What a Week. And what a week, what a weekend. Yes, man, I'm full of joy. In fact, I nearly lost my voice, Tony. I turned proper cockney, mate. I was like, oh, come on, this is emotional, mate. Not even emotional. This is emotional.
You know, all the fans from other teams are looking at Mr. Abramovich as the role models for how owners of football clubs need to be.
Listen, mate. That's when you're a billionaire, you haven't got time for mediocrity. That's what it is, you know. In order to become a billionaire, you have to make billionaire decisions. You know, so when he sacked Frank, and people was like, "Oh my, how could he do it? He isn't given enough time. He's got to give him more time, innit?" That's on your wage bracket. That's you can give Frank time on Abramovich's wage structure. Yeah, man, and how he sees things, his vision is far above. And that's why even like I forget the other players, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He says lions care not for the opinions of sheep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So
it's almost like that classic line from The King and I, where Yul Brynner says, "When you're a when you are king, you are king."
And he's the king, man.
Yeah. So how was your weekend, Tony?
Yeah, it was lovely, bro. I mean, I don't really follow the football, but I did sort of tune in and watch the game. You know, you know, it was mildly interesting as a neutral supporter. To be honest, but I was happy. You know, I was happy for the winners, man. I was happy for the winners. You know, Manchester City won the Premiership, so give someone else the Champions League. Don't be greedy.
Come on now. Jemmy is in the building. How you doing, sir? He says, next slide, please, and next topic.
Is he patient now, Jimmy?
Yeah. Don't worry, Jimmy. On behalf of all of us here at Chelsea, we've got something for you what you can take back and put into the cupboard at Arsenal. Here you go. This is about the closest to any cup that you're not going to get for a very long time.
Saying good evening to Carolyn. Carolyn's trying to get on us again. See, she's telling us how she went to Portugal.
She's. I think. Oh, she might.
I seen all her snaps on Facebook. I said the evening we just land and look at. We still are tuning in.
Yeah. Look at that, man. You know what? We absolutely love your dedication, Carolyn, and also Spice as well. Welcome you back into the country. We did leave messages at immigration for them to not let you in. However, being the queens that you are, you're welcome here anytime.
And Mr. C, I think they were saying what happens in Portugal.
Yes. What happens in Portugal stays in Portugal. Yeah, well, I think every divulgence has got its price, though, Tony. So. Yeah, I think we just need to work out what Kaz's little fetish or her little weak spot is, and bribe her. It might be chocolates. It might be.
Well, one of them is aeroplanes, bro.
Oh, is it?
It's aeroplanes. She can't stay on the ground.
Yeah, it's true.
Every other show, she's popping style on the show.
All I know is she's the only person I know who's got more air miles than what she's got Tesco club card points.
I tell you.
Air miles is long.
She's got nothing to report. Okay. Okay. We saw the pictures. The question is, who was taking the picture of you in that outfit on the balcony? That's the question I want to ask.
Yeah, that's a question that her husband would like to know the answer to as well.
That's not incriminating.
Was his name Miguel, and did he adorn you?
Oh, he's a lovely waiter.
What for a vote? You know we're only playing, Carolyn. You know we're only playing. God bless you. We missed you, man. We missed you. When you're not here.
Yeah.
I was going to say the sun doesn't shine as bright, but actually it does. It actually does. In this case, it does. It does.
So look, we're rolling down to the end of the lockdown for this for the season. And we also have to inform our viewers that we're rolling down to the end of our show for this season at the end of the month. So the 29th of June will be our last show for the summer. And we will return, God willing, in the first week in September, I believe.
There you go. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we will be taking a well-deserved break. Again, it will allow us and also yourselves to really enjoy this moment of the unlifting of lockdown. And we hopefully will be doing one or two little roving reports during our time off. And who knows? If need be, we may have to do a special every now and then. So keep it peeled for more information.
Indeed. Carolyn says, what are we going to do on Tuesday evenings? I'll tell you a little bit more about that towards the end of the month.
There you go. But then again, look, wherever you lot go on a Tuesday evening, me and Tony may come and pay you a visit because it would be lovely to meet some of you in person. It feels like it's been an eternity since we've been having conversations as regards to various different topics with you. And it would really be nice because, you know, sometimes with the little, what they call them, the profile pictures, they're so small, Tony. I can't see what people actually look like. So I would love, and Tony as well, to see the faces and meet the actual people behind the little profile pictures as well. And again, some of you, we would really love to shake your hands and say thank you for your support, because without it, we wouldn't have been able to have done this journey of What a Week. So thank you once again very much.
Absolutely. Listen, see, I have a fear that, you know, because they've seen us and we can't see them, we might go out to an event and unwittingly walk past them. Do you see?
Yes.
And that tiny customer, I seen it, and he couldn't even say hello to me.
You see what I mean? Like,
I can't see the picture. I don't know.
And that's the truth.
You know, they've seen a moving image of yourself. They've seen a moving image, so they might be able to pick us out, but we won't be able to pick them out. So if you do see us on your travels, please come and say hello and say who you are, so that we can, you know, put the names to the faces.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're out and about and you see me or Tony, please make sure you say hi to Tony and just go on about your business when you see me. Yeah, you don't get into my business, I won't get into yours. Not really. I'm playing. Make sure you come and say hello, man.
Yeah, for sure.
We would love to meet you. Yeah,
for sure.
Love to meet you. However, if I'm in a restaurant, a very expensive restaurant, in the corner, candlelit, and it's me and the opposite sex, then please, be respectful in your approach. Yeah, unless you're paying the bill.
And if you see me in Nando's, feel free. You can disturb me. It's all right.
There you go. Caroline says you met me enough times before. Tony Crook, it would be lovely to meet you though.
Oh.
And I can honestly say, Tony, all jokes aside, that Caroline is an absolutely wonderful human being, an amazing woman, and you will feel like she's been a lifelong friend. So there you go.
I look forward to meeting her. Yeah.
See, no underhand jokes or anything at all. Yeah. Christopher says he paid for my chicken. Yes, Chris. That's the reason why we've been doing this show, so we can get free chicken, brother. There you go. Look, all I can say is with Christopher, though, he'll pay for your chicken, but you might not eat it. Allow him, man. Big up, Christopher. How you doing, family? Always good, man. Much love to you and the family. Much love, much love. So look, Tony, let's kick things off. There's been some interesting stories in the news this week. We touched on one last week, which was very distressing. The Sasha Johnson situation, where we have one of our UK's most outstanding and uplifting female activists, Sasha Johnson. She was tragically injured in a shooting incident in a private party in Peckham. There's been an update, Tony. What is the update and what's the headline, please?
Well, so if we can just have the first slide, please, because we picked up on this in the newspaper, and apparently, Mr. C, the assailants, allegedly the assailants, I think 5 men were found and have been taken in for police questioning. So if we can see that on the slide, we can actually talk about that. But yeah, 5 men were held, according to Metropolitan Police, for the incident that took place at the party in Peckham. And well, none have been charged as yet, but it's just suspicion. They're on suspicion of attempted murder. And to be honest, see, I'm pleasantly surprised by this news.
Okay.
I didn't expect it so soon.
Why are you surprised?
I don't know. I don't know, because remember last week we were talking about it, and there just seemed to be some anomalies about it. I just wasn't quite sure about the story, and how that went down. So obviously to see that within a week, within a few days, that people have been held, that's good news. So we do have to say well done to the police for doing their job.
Well, look, I mean, Tony, I didn't want to throw this out there. However, I think I will. I'm not surprised.
Right.
I'm not surprised. Because it always seems like when there's certain, how can I put it? When there's certain things that happen, there always seems to be, is any of the 5 men called Patsy by any chance?
Not as far as I know.
Right, because what I find really amazing is that in the history of shootings in London or the UK, I can't recall ever there being a shooting on a weekend and within a week the police have got 5 suspects. I have no memory of it. The other thing, I'm not sure, I could be wrong on this, but I haven't seen or heard any news bulletins as regards to how many shots were fired as regards to the Sasha Johnson situation.
Right.
And again, based on my own assumptions of dealing with these kind of firearm incidents, it's very, very rare that one single shot is fired. And I haven't seen any news reports where somebody's saying, witnesses said multiple shots were fired.
Right.
I find it really unusual that she's the only person in that particular dance who had been hit.
Yeah.
So I could be wrong. There could be more information out there, but it's not being pushed or on social media for me to see as such. So again, I'd like to ask our viewers: have you heard any different varying stories as regards to the whole Sasha Johnson? Did you hear about anybody else being hit with a stray bullet? Were there reports of there being multiple gunshots? If so, then to me this all kind of seems very much weird, Tony.
So let me read the little article about this then. See, it says 5 men have been arrested on suspicion of the attempted murder of Black Lives Matter activist Sasha Johnson in Peckham. Miss Johnson remains in a critical condition in hospital after being found in the early hours of Sunday with gunshot wounds to her head at a property in Consort Road. Met Police said that about 3:50 p.m. on Tuesday, so it was a couple of days later, they stopped a 17-year-old man, and following a search, he was arrested on suspicion of possession of an offensive weapon and possession with intent to supply Class A drugs. Further investigations led officers to a property in Peckham where 3 further men were arrested. Now, it doesn't seem to suggest that these men had anything to do with Sasha Johnson. This is quite a very curious report, Mr. C.
Very, very, very. Again, there's no mention of anything there which remotely ties those suspects to the actual murder, in my opinion, unless there's crucial bits of evidence which they don't want the public to know because it will harm or damage the case. I mean, look, if I try not to be a cynic and say, well, you know what, first and foremost, well done to the Metropolitan Police for finding such a swift, how can I put it, a swift method of action in this particular case. However, something, as our ancestors would say, something not right here, master, something just not right here. It's not right, may I tell you. If you feel it in my bones, something not right here, master. But yeah, I mean, look, headshot again, classic hallmarks of an assassination. I mean, have they given any details as regards to where she actually was when she was shot? Was she inside the house, outside the house? Because I do believe I heard originally that she was outside the house.
In the garden area, I understand.
Right.
But, you know, that's a good point there. You know, I mean, headshots are usually the mark of assassinations as opposed to a random shooting. And it's usually a sign of clear intent of murder. So, yeah, you know, it's like what I said. This is what I'm saying. I'm pleasantly surprised if these individuals are anything to do with it. But, you know, again, it's suspicion. So we'll have to. What we want to do is obviously keep an eye on this story because it's quite interesting how it's going to turn out. But, you know, just something's just it's if they're charges, then we will want to kind of know about them and want to bring them to our viewers and see what transpires.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it is what it is, what they've portrayed it to be, then you know, hopefully, you know, we want to make sure that they catch the right person. We don't just want any and anybody caught for this. We definitely want the right person to be caught and for them to receive a sentence that reflects the crime. And we need people like this off the street. If this is just a random, you know, a case of violence, absolutely abhorrent violence. So, but again, as we said, our thoughts goes out to Sasha Johnson's family, her friends. Again, she was such a fantastic activist. One of my colleagues was speaking to me today as regards to a couple of videos he's actually seen of her. Have you seen this woman, Tony, in action?
I've just seen her giving speeches.
Powerful beyond belief, mate.
Yeah.
Powerful beyond belief.
Yeah.
Clear vision, you know, clear strategy. She is very, very serious as regards to what she felt Black people needed and the way for Black people to move forward in this country. And her action will be 100% missed within our community. So I just hope that those who are around her within her political party will pick up the baton and run with it. So time will tell.
Yeah, and that's the point we have to make clear here, because although they call her a BLM activist, she was an activist for them for a time, but she's now actually started her own party. And whether that could be seen as you know, by the powers that be as something far too dangerous to have. Because she wasn't really just, I mean, the speeches I've heard about with her were not just directly solely at Black people, but, you know, for people to sort of come together and realize, you know, how they were being played by the system and so forth and so on. So, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that, you know, there could be some form of foul play here. I mean, good evening, Phil. Phil says, could it be some form of control opposition wanting her out of the way?
Could very well be that way. I mean, you know, we look at what happened to JFK. We look at what happened to Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. You know, yeah, anytime there seems to be somebody who wants to bring people together, John Lennon, they all seem to end up the same kind of way.
I think the only thing I would say with that, is I mean, she has, well, we don't know the level of impact she was having. Normally, when these things do happen to, figures of influence, is when they've sort of garnered a very large base of support, and it actually can become an actual threat. I don't know how much support she actually had, but it suggested to me that she was probably at the very beginning of her stage with that party. So. Again, we don't know. It's hard to say. And to be honest, if it was what Phil suggests, then will we ever know? It's never going to come out in the papers. There's going to be something weaved around this.
Yeah. It'll take a while before it comes out, is what we can say. But I mean, from whatever person it is, there will always be some kind of theory, be it conspiracy or be it factual. And as we always say, the truth will come to light one day. So we'll see. But again, those of you who wish to support Sasha Johnson and her family, there is a GoFundMe page, I do believe. We haven't got the full details at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. But again, if you do a Google search on Sasha Johnson GoFundMe, I think they was trying to raise £20,000 to help towards her medical costs, and also supporting her children as well, because she does have some very young children who are missing their mother right now. So whatever little you can do to help, then please do so.
Saying good evening to Rudolph Henderson. Good evening, Rudy. Welcome, brother.
Big up yourself, rude boy.
Yeah. And so while we're on this story of Black Lives Matter, I don't know if you caught the news a couple of days ago. If we can put out the next slide, one of the founding members of Black Lives Matter has left the organization. And questions have been asked about her exit. So she wasn't pushed or anything like that, but she left on her own accord. And apparently, Patrice Cullors said that basically she's going to concentrate on writing her book, and she's got, I think, some form of documentary or something to make in Hollywood alongside Warner Brothers.
Wow.
So this was the reason why she left. But Mr. C, there seems to be a dark cloud over the lady, because apparently, she is now found to have had a property portfolio worth a few $1 million. Black Lives Matter have said that they have had somewhere in the region of $90 million through donations, some of it not accounted for. So what do we think is going on with that?
Well, it's quite clear to see, for me, that she's moving from one area of importance to another. She's obviously gone from Black Lives Matter to Book Lives Matter. Yeah, no, it doesn't seem good. I mean, did she have this property portfolio before she started the whole Black Lives Matter campaigning?
We don't know, and we obviously we can't say what we don't know. The problem is, of course, is that obviously Black Lives Matter was set up to allegedly fight for the causes of Black people specifically, but we know, looking at their about page, their agenda was really about obviously trans and gay people. That's where their focus really was. And obviously some of the people who were killed through police brutality, like Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice, their parents have now come out and said, actually, Black Lives Matter did nothing specifically for them.
Wow. Hold on a minute. Say that again?
So the parents of Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice came out explicitly. We can show it on we have a slide. They've come out and said that Black Lives Matter is a scam, and that they did nothing for them except to exploit the deaths of their children, because they never received any sort of help, financial or otherwise. And so it's left them kind of feeling like they've been scammed. In other words, that the death of their children was used to prop up the organization, who made money, but the victims of these atrocities did not receive anything or any real support. So if we can see that in the next slide, hopefully it should come up in a second so the viewers can see it. But it is, so it's Tamir Rice's mother. So she said, basically, talking about there it goes. So talking about the resignation of Patrisse Cullors, which we just discussed, one of the three women who started Black Lives Matter. She says she's taking the money and running. So she says Tamir Rice's mums leads Black mothers of police shooting victims, slamming BLM director Patrisse Cullors for profiting from their dead kids and quitting with $3 million property portfolio.
Wow. Wow, that's a big accusation and allegation. And it's definitely something that needs to be looked into, because they raised millions upon millions of pounds. And it does beg the question, what are they doing with the money? Where'd that go?
I don't know. I know it's so sad. I have to smile because this just reminds me of, church pastors and other leading figures, within the community who, say, send the money, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We're going to build the church. We need to build this, and nothing ever comes out of it.
Excuse me. And my days.
People money and run off.
Listen, wow. Listen. Yeah, I thought that the money was going to help support legal cases for those who had been evicted, the families of those who had been a victim of police brutality and so on and so forth. So the fact that Tamir Rice's mum is saying that she's had no support from BLM at all, and that's a high-profile case.
Right.
So if something as high as that has received nothing in terms of support from BLM, and who the Ku Klux Klan are they helping?
and more to the point, what is the real agenda, behind BLM? What are they standing for? If this is, if this is allowed to happen, and someone can have $3 million worth of property portfolio and know that money in the bank, and the people who died, right? So how it looks at right now is that dead Black people provided profits for those who basically were able to skim money off an organization which was supposed to represent them. And now the lady's obviously resigned. She's going to sort out her book, and she's going to Warner Brothers to sort out a deal she has with the film company. So
Blockbuster lives matter. Blockbuster lives matter is what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
It's the heat, man. The heat's got me wavy, and inside this room is like a furnace. But if I open the windows too loud, I get too much passing traffic noise. So if you see me kind of yawning and everything, ladies and gentlemen, it's not that you're boring us or boring me. It's just that, boy, heat. A long time I don't really eat like this in the Maza. I tell you, got me behaving like a white man. I want to put a handkerchief on the top of my head and go, it's your ear, isn't it? It's like your catchy, isn't it? It's so bloody, mate.
Say good evening, Adrian Carlos. He says, nice talk, Mr. C.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Thank you.
Yes. And good evening, Ruby Brown. She says, I always questioned this. What was the many millions raised used for? Good luck to those who donated for others to build their own private empire. Ruby, that's how it certainly looks, isn't it? We do know. I mean, if you do a little digging with Black Lives Matter, they have at least one billionaire, a man named George Soros, who has pumped millions into Black Lives Matter. If you know anything about George Soros, he's one of these kind of progressive, what they call progressive individuals, who basically pumps money, particularly into LGBTQ organizations around the world, to help foster change, right? Not always a change you're thinking about, but that's what he does. So BLM has a lot of money. What they do with it, well, we may never know.
Well, Ruby Brown asked a question. So you're saying BLM founders really care about the black man?
The black trans man, probably. Black trans man.
If that man was born originally a woman, then decided to change into a man, then yes, that hits their remit.
Yeah.
And
they've said that explicitly, Mr. C. So it's not that we're making this up. They actually said that they wanted to create safe spaces for women and trans folk. So in other words, no heterosexual black men. Do they want? They don't see those spaces as safe spaces, and their remit has always been. The black community has a problem because we're too narrow-minded, particularly the men. Since we're not open-minded to LGBTQ, and so their mission is to promote that within the community, and so that we can learn and be more accepting. So that's pretty much where their remit is at. That's why you hear them. You hear them a lot now would say all Black Lives Matter. So they started off with all Black Lives Matter, then it's all Black lives. So in other words, all Black lives along the spectrum of sexuality, right? So anyway, point being, she's left. She's the leading, one of the founders left. I'm not even sure if black people are actually running that organization anymore, Mr. C.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, because what are they? Are they a charity? Should be able to pull up their accounts online, to be honest with you, and look at what their spend and budget is, and again, where they get their money from, whether it's all donations or whether it's funding. So it'd be an interesting little project. Yeah,
maybe we'll see for next week. See if any more news comes out of this for next week, and we could probably look into that a little bit more. So moving away from some bad news, and let's look at some good news. We'll see the London Borough of Hackney has done something
remarkable.
Let's see the next. Let's plug this.
Remarkable.
The London Borough of Hackney. Now, this is not actually brand new news, but it is just now circulating, right? Because that decision was made at the end of last year. So there's going to be a new Black History curriculum rolled out across all Hackney schools, which is wonderful news. I mean, it's late, but, better late than never. So we're told here that pupils in Hackney are set to learn about Black British history. Mr. C, Black British history, right? Thanks to a groundbreaking new curriculum developed by Hackney teachers and council staff. So Hackney's diverse curriculum, the Black Contribution, is a new 9-week lesson plan spanning from early years to KS3 and 4 students, and will further the teaching of Black history in Hackney and the UK.
Well, it sounds like they've been watching What a Week, Tony, and they've been following your platform. Oh dear.
Wait, but you know with these curriculums, they work along a certain line, which is the Windrush generation going backwards, right? And then the odd Black person that was here during Tudor times. They can't work off the parameters that we are free to work off on this show.
Yeah, and they were sticking Winston from EastEnders in there as well. So.
Right, because I remember when I was doing a lesson like this at one of the schools I was working at, and the teacher was a Black teacher was most upset.
Why? Why was that?
She felt I was going off curriculum. She said that she said that I need to check my facts. Before teaching, stuff like that.
That's beautiful. So the subject that you've got so much passion and knowledge in, that you need to check it, and her, who has no knowledge or expertise or passion in your gifted subject, would challenge you.
Well, she didn't know about it, and she said, "Oh, you've got to make sure you check your sources and your references properly before teaching that to the kids." Which I didn't bother respond to that, But the point why I'm raising that story is because of this whole curriculum. If you kind of read between the lines, obviously it looks like it's Black teachers and Black council staff who basically put this together. And then talking about the history of Black people in Hackney, which is obviously Windrush and up to now, right? And Black people in the UK generally. So what is known about Black people in the UK generally is the 1 or 2 people that lived during Tudor times, you know, and the couple
the
that
slaves or something.
Right, the couple that the Romans met when they got here in the 1st century. That's pretty much. I noticed, Mr. C, it's a 9-week course, so it doesn't even last any. It doesn't last any real significant time. 2 months, and then it's over. We're going to talk about something. So what that also demonstrates is that there's a very limited amount of information that they have to share on the subject. You see, so yeah, but still, it's a start. I mean, it's better than you know, the typical thing that they normally talk about, which is Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, and you know,
the stuff that has no interest to us.
Right.
Not so much no interest. It can't assist us in finding our own pathway right here where we are now, I should say.
Right, and I think that what you just said is an excellent point. And I think the point is you're not supposed to find your own pathway. That's the whole point of teaching you this history that really doesn't make much sense. Is you're not supposed to find your pathway. Because remember, we've talked about this before in the history class, where, you know, if you're a captive of an empire, then not for you to find your own way. It's certainly not for your young people. So while you're going to learn history, the curriculum is going to be nothing, probably much more than head knowledge, but not much about self-determination and, you know, the identity of the people and so forth and so on. But we can say at least it's a start. You know, it'd be interesting. You know, I'm gonna sort of check in and look at look at a couple of contacts and see and find out exactly what's going on, and what are the criteria for the curriculum, and who decides who decides, because ultimately someone signs off that curriculum. You can't just teach.
Oh yeah. Christopher Gatt saying the man in Chester trademarking an African language. Yes. Yeah, absolute madness. Typical, man. That is what you call cultural appropriation.
He's backed off. Sorry, you'd be happy to know he's backed off. I mean, there's been so much pushback. I believe I can't remember where it was. Yeah, Chester. I think somewhere up there, trademarking the word Yoruba.
I think I don't even think it was pushback. I think what happened was people left chicken back and chicken neck in his bed. And told him, hey, right about now, you need to be changing your mind.
Yeah. So he basically he claimed sole ownership over the word and anything related to the word. So if it was Yoruba food, Yoruba trade, but there was such a pushback on that he had to back down on that. But apparently, you know, my issue is, how was that ever legal? You know, how could he ever get away with something like that?
Well, that's the thing. That's the complication of the law, isn't it? Really, if something is out there and it hasn't been used or attached to already, then it's free for pickings. But yeah, but you go and call yourself or your child Prince something and the other, Prince Harry or Prince. What? Not happening.
Yeah.
So go work, master.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for bringing up that story. But yeah, I saw that earlier this week, and I was sort of looked what happened with that. But it seems like he's kind of back down now. So, but you know, it doesn't stop other people from trying to claim names like that.
Exactly. I've just got to get some water. I can feel my mouth drying up. I've underhydrated myself. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to stop my camera and stuff. But Tony, if you just continue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as I was saying, you know, this whole thing about the history and teaching history in Hackney schools, I think it's a very good start. I wonder, I'd be interested to know how other boroughs might yet be affected. I think they're probably going to look at Hackney as a pilot scheme that they may be able to copy. And it'd be interesting to see how that progresses. And as I was saying, I'm going to just talk to a couple of my contacts and see what the curriculum actually has in it, and who decides what is allowed to be taught and what not. Because I'd like to get involved in that. That would be something interesting if it's allowed. If the borough is interested in opening their eyes, especially to their connection with Henry VIII, and you know, I could tell them so many things about the old Brookhouse School. Those of you who know Hackney very well, the old Brookhouse School, the site of the old Brookhouse School was actually one of Henry VIII's palaces long before it was converted to a school. You know, he had hunting grounds. in Newington Green, he used to have a hunting lodge in Newington Green, where he used to bring all these ladies and all these friends, and they used to have a party. Musicians play music, eat food, hunt. Yeah, so Hackney is a royal borough, and of course we know that the original paintings of Henry and what's said about his wife are not exactly correct, because we know that particularly what's her name now? What's the wife? Oh, what's her name? Ooh, they just made a TV series about her recently, but she was a black woman. Anyway, her name escapes me, but one of his wives was, and we saw. Well, if you watched the show a few months ago, we did a whole show about Henry VIII and his influence and the influence of Hackney and what they were doing here 500 years ago. So yeah, it's very, very interesting to have that situation. So okay, so we've talked about BLM, we've talked about Black history in Hackney. Let's move on. Shifting gears very quickly, ladies. If you went on a date, Anne Boleyn, thank you very much, Angie. Sorry, my mind went Anne Boleyn. That's it. Thank you, the Empress Alison. Anne Boleyn. I'm getting old. So you'll see. She even has a road named after her in Hackney, right? Boleyn Road, N16. For those of you who've been around there, King Henry's Walk, N1. Queen Margaret, which is Henry's sister, has a road named after her. Mile May Road. I mean, all these places are all to do with the Tudors and that era of Henry VIII. So, yeah, thank you for that reminder. So, Mr. C.
Yes, sir.
We're going to switch gears now and talk about dating and going out on a date and some unexpected things happening.
Well, listen, of course, I mean, look, now the sun is out, man. People are starting to go out and link. You know, you don't have to do things in your bubble anymore. So, you know, this weekend we saw some people having their very first date for a very long time, and yeah, it was surprising for both parties, I'm sure. I mean, we have a little video. Let's run that video and see.
No, my mama, she raised me better than that.
Okay, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry, bro. My bad, man.
Oh, no.
So, what you about to get into?
I'm gonna just head out, maybe I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Oh, you're going to the bathroom?
Yeah, I just need to get out my stuff.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me.
I'll be right here. I'm going to get the check real quick.
All right.
See, what is going on with what is going on? Is with the younger men and the hair thing? What's going on, bro? We saw a few months ago. We saw about the hair weave, didn't we? We saw a video about hair weave, and there's a brother in South London who actually specializes in producing them, right?
You know what it is? What monkey see monkey do. And I think so many men are watching so many women for so long do, on some levels, stupidness with their hair, on other levels being so creative with the hair that they have left or the hair that they have not. And so men are now thinking that they can join in some of this foolish men too. Because
I mean, I can't help but notice on social media, you often see these ads every now and then, where you have guys, they can have their head painted or
tattooed.
Yeah, tattooed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that? That wasn't a tattoo, was it? That was just paint.
No, it looked like it was sprayed. It's something what a lot of guys are doing with their beards and stuff now. If there's a bit on your beard what doesn't link up, you use like a little pencil kind of thing, and you do the dots in.
Right.
So it's very much like what women do with their eyelashes. It's mascara for your beard. So this is mascara for your head top by the look of it. Because even with the barbers now, they're doing that to get a clean line. They're spraying to get the lines really dead straight. So they're using like a spray kind of paint and a stencil to get that sharp line. So it looked like his barber's done a little bit more than what was necessary. It almost looked like the woman left her name there, Kim, in his forehead. Kim.
Who the hell is Kim? But what do you think? I mean, is this the growing effeminization of men? See that as you said, we're watching women so much that rather than setting our own standards, we're copying them.
I think definitely. I think a lot of men now they see women more than they see other men. We don't really congregate as much as men. I mean, when was the last time you went out with a group of men, 3 or 4 guys?
Yeah, long time.
Does that mean? So I think what we find now is that when we tend to go anywhere socially, it's usually dominated, especially in our circle, by women. Like if we went into the Street Sounds brunch this weekend, I can guarantee you that there would have been 70%, the audience would have been 70% or 75% of women, and the rest would have been men. So we're constantly around the presence of women. So sooner or later, I suppose, we'll pick out some of their traits.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Adrian says, I'm noticing a lot of feminine men about. Yeah, we've been talking about this particularly on the After Dark show, where we sort of pointed this out, that there seems to be the drifting of the sexes crossing into each other's lane.
Definitely.
That men would never dream about doing before. Now they're starting to do it.
Yeah, if we can just block Horla for us, please. Thank you very much. That'd be lovely.
All are getting very excited in the comments here.
Yeah.
Please, delete this person, please.
Yeah.
So we've got man weave, we've got paint, we've got tattoos on the head to stay beautiful. Do you see that a lot of these younger guys are feeling the pressure of staying beautiful? Is that the issue?
Well, I think to a certain degree, possibly that may be part of it, but again, it's this ideal of what beauty is and what is acceptable. Because again, if you're with a woman for a long period of time, and you see that when you're going out, it takes her an hour to paint her face. If you're seeing before she goes out, it takes half an hour to adjust her hair. If there's a special occasion coming up, she goes to a particular hair. We see all of this. So again, this lets you know that these are the things which are acceptable in society. So I think some men think, well, you know what, if we're talking equality, then I should be able to do exactly the same what you do. You've been fighting and voting or demanding that you can do the same as men, whether it be play football, whether it be attract the same wages as a man does in playing tennis, being able to have the same high-powered job, to drive a bus, to do all the various different things. Therefore, men are probably now saying, wrongly in my opinion, Tony, that if you can fabricate what the condition of your head top is, then so can I. And we're seeing it. We're seeing men wearing makeup. We're seeing men, having surgery done to either get a 6-pack or to have biceps and various other bits and pieces. It won't be far before we start seeing men having Botox for their lips and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, it's a changing world that we're in, see, and I'm not sure what can be done to change it back, because this seems to be a tidal wave of feminine males, masculine females, and we might need to. We might need a whole new generation to start over again to actually correct this.
So yeah, but obviously this was a spoof, ladies and gentlemen. It was at John Joan on TikTok, and I think again they captured the scene really well. Dating in 2021, part 2. Please give them a look up and have a look what part 1 was like.
So I wonder what the ladies would think. What would the lady viewers think, Mr. C, if they went out on a date and they had this experience and a man's man weave started lifted up or his paint on his head come off? Would they blow him out, or would they?
No. Of course not, Tony. I mean, like, number one, our ladies are of such superior intelligence and integrity that they would see past all of that and absolutely categorically want to continue the date because they want to get to know the guy's personality before they make such an irrational decision. And the second and most important point, Tony, most of the ladies on here have been on lockdown for so long that any man them see, them are go grateful. Playing, ladies.
It's all right. Playing. It's only paint. I wipe it off.
The thing is, though, Tony, can you imagine now if this guy goes to a dance and you've got another woman who goes to a dance who wears foundation? The two of them are danced to H-Town. By the time them finish rub up and dance, we don't know which one's the man or which one's the woman. Or one fierce transfer to the other. It's like John Travolta and Nicolas Cage face off.
I mean, we laugh, but
yeah.
I don't know. Oh man.
What can we do? What can we do?
I'm sure at the moment it's just I'm sure it's just a minority of men right now doing it. You know, the majority seem to be kind of on point, you know. But there's no doubt that we can see the creeping influence of the effeminization of men. Albeit we know that's from the States, but we've seen it here too in the UK. So it's just a question of maybe this is the future, Mr. C.
Yes, I think we're going to see lots of different things become the norm over time, and yeah, the future will get more and more challenging and further away from what is comfortable for some people, and well, acceptable for others. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. So let's say good evening to Sharon Spice Gibson.
Oh, you reach, Sharon.
Jet lagged. She's on jet lag, but she's here. Welcome. And Yolande, welcome.
She's a jet what? Did you say, Tony? She's a jet?
No, jet lag.
Oh, she jet lagged. Sorry, so jet lag. Sorry. Just, you know, sometimes this thing in my ear, I miss out what certain words and everything.
No. Good evening, Nikki and Nikita. Welcome.
Big up yourself. Yolande, big up yourself as well.
Yeah.
Good evening to you. So yeah, so look, I've got to say that dating in 2021, I'm sure will get even more intriguing. Have you been out anywhere, Tony, as regards to restaurants or anything at all, to see the general census and feelings of people out there?
To be honest, no, not yet. I think I plan to do it once the lockdown is completely lifted. I mean, I have been on, you know, when I've gone for a walk or stuff, you see, to be honest, it's like, it's almost like there was never a lockdown. The way people are congregating in the pubs. I mean, I was out today, you know, in the local park, and the way people were outside congregating in the pubs together, it was like there was never COVID. You know, it's almost like as soon as the sun comes out and they're all out, they've forgotten that they were under lockdown for 15, 16 months.
Well, look, I've got a couple pubs and restaurants on just off the road from me, and they've been so busy, and I totally agree with you, Tony. It's almost as though people have forgotten that something was going on, where we was all in our houses, like we was hiding from the big bad wolf, like we were three little pigs. So time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah. You know what? I think people are gonna blend back in. for the summer. And I think the trouble might come if there's another lockdown again for the winter, sort of readjusting to that situation, if that happens. If we're fortunate, it might not happen. There might not be a lockdown. We might actually get back to some sense of normality, but we'll have to wait and see about that.
But I have to say, Tony, that however, there's a part of me what was just so happy to see people being happy.
Yes.
To see people in conversations. I saw tables where, you know, somebody on one side of the table even glanced around and said something to the other person on the other table. It was just happy. I felt happy seeing people just, again, being normal human beings.
Yeah. And you know what? I haven't seen a mask for quite a few days now in public.
I think they're still using them on the buses and tubes, though, aren't they?
Okay.
I think they are. I'm not sure. I think they are. Please, if anybody knows, or those of you who are commuting, I mean, again, yes. As I was doing radio this morning, one of my listeners was saying, "Okay, I can't listen to the end of the show, because I've got to make my way into work." So some people have now started that little commute back into work. How has that been? Let us know. Are you one of those people?
Yeah, people are getting phone calls now and emails saying that we're back at the office maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week.
Okay, so Phil's saying Boris was due to get married in July, but got married on Saturday, so he knows something we don't, which means lockdown coming soon. Phil, I love you, you know. I love you. That's a great observation. Why else would he change his wedding from July to June? That's really interesting. That's a real interesting point.
She also says that they want to vaccinate the kids. Yeah, that's right. They were saying that they want to vaccinate the kids in September, when they go back to school. So
yeah, well,
this story is not ending just yet.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about the kids being vaccinated, going back to school. I'm happy because both of my children now, my last two sons, have finally finished school.
Excellent.
I've been saying this for such a long time. Give us free. Give us free. So I'm that's it, man. I don't have to go to Myers of Neasden anymore to go and buy oversized school uniform. I don't have to give them no hand-me-down shoes, brief, nothing at all. It's a lovely feeling. Lovely feeling.
Anyway, let's not worry about what's going to happen in September, October. No, let's just enjoy each day that we're blessed with life. We have sunshine. You know, we can meet friends.
Yes.
And feel alive again, even if it is for a short period. But let's not think about that. Let's just enjoy the time we have together, you know. And I'm sure, as you said in the beginning, Mr. C, a lot of us are going to meet up, right, when we're out and about. So if you see me and C around, please say hello. Tell us who you are, because we can't see on these little profile things. We can't see your face, so it's going to be hard to recognize you.
Yeah, so definitely, please make yourself approachable. No, make yourself known when you see us. We're very approachable, is what I was trying to say. And also as well, a little exclusive for yourselves. The bank holiday weekend of August, the 28th, 29th of August, there will be a comedy festival taking place in Northwest London. You will hear more information about that hopefully before we come to end of this season, and we should be giving you some exclusive as regards to which comedians will be performing. But it will be an all-day comedy festival taking place on the bank holiday Sunday and possibly the Saturday. You've heard it here first, live and direct. What a week.
Lovely. And just to remind you that our last show for this season will be on the 29th of June. And we are taking a summer break, just as you are, to enjoy the sun. We do plan to be back first week in 5 shows left for this month, and then we're back in September. But in the meantime, we may, if we need to do an emergency broadcast, we will be coming back on to inform you of anything that's going to be happening. So see, when it comes to that time.
Yes, man. Just before that, poor Phil. Yeah. Phil saying that driving comedy is down the road from her, but she doesn't drive, and no one with cars available. Oh my days.
Oh.
Well, look, Phil. I think I've just been booked to do another one of those driving comedy things, and I think on the 29th. No, not the 29th. The 25th or something like that of June. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come and pick you up, take you to the comedy show. Hopefully the sun will be shining and everything, and I'll find a little space for you, darling. Okay? We're not left you out.
I tell you, this show, people on this show are very charitable, man. Very charitable, bro.
There you go. So look, as we're saying, sorry, Tony, as you was correctly saying, this now concludes this part of our show, ladies and gentlemen. And we gladly move on to the bit which we all get so much joy and enlightenment from, the Black History section of our show, where Tony Crossbody leads. And where he leads, ladies and gentlemen, is where Jah has sent him for us to listen, observe, do our own research, but most importantly, to follow. Tony Crossbody, please. Yeah. Where are you taking us today, sir?
Well, we're gonna go a little bit off piste, a little bit. So if we could just have the first slide, you'll see what I mean as we get into the study. But if we could just have this first slide, please, management. As always, I like to start the show like this because we do get some new viewers from time to time, and they haven't been obviously following the show, so they might not know what this Black history is about. But we've actually been charting the history of those who are the descendants of those who were in the transatlantic slave trade, namely those out of the Caribbean, America, and Brazil, and all of South America, right? Who were taken as prisoners of war, enslaved persons, to the West, where they were for 400 years. So these people we have worked out through using the Bible, through using historical documents that the Europeans wrote, through looking at maps. We have realized that these Black people are the original Hebrews of the Bible. So to start our show, we're just going to show you 10 reasons why this is the case with the related scriptures. Mr. C is going to read them out, and then we're going to go into our studies. So C? So
here we go. The 10 related scriptures are taken from, first of all, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. They will be transported into slavery by ships. Genesis 15:13 reads, enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. Their identity will be stripped from them. That's Jeremiah 17:4. Foreigners will assume their identity. Lamentations 5:2 and Lamentations.
Lamentations, yeah.
Lamentations. There you go. Because I know in my head I don't want to say laminate flooring, because I know that's what it is, you see. Revelations 2:9 and also 3:9 mentions the same passage as regards to foreigners would assume their identity. Second Chronicles 7:20, ridiculed as a people. Deuteronomy 28:44 says they will be the bottom of society. Deuteronomy 21:22 and also Galatians 3:13 reads, they will be hung from trees. And finally, Deuteronomy 28:64 also mentions they'll be scattered to different nations.
So we got a couple more underneath that. If we can just lift the slide up a little bit, please, management, so Mr. C can see the bits at the bottom.
Yeah, there's another 2 more.
There's another 2 more, yeah. Some more, please.
There's another 2 more scriptures underneath. So as I was saying, scattered to different nations, Deuteronomy 28:64, and also it features in Luke 21:24.
So let me read the other two. The other two is that they would be in constant fear of their life. That's taken from Deuteronomy 28:65. And last one, Mr. C.
Their family life would be chaotic. Women would be leading the men, and the children would be chaotic. And that's from Isaiah 3, verse 12.
Thank you. So 10 reasons why we, and it's not just the only 10 reasons, it's just that there's so many more, but 10 reasons we can just pull up as to why we say that black people today, those who are descendants of those who were taken out of Africa and the Iberian Peninsula, are the modern day Hebrews of the Bible. Next slide, please.
Now, let me say something right quick. I think back on the African-American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. You hear a black person sing one of those old black Negro spirituals. Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I say, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying to you. You better shut your mouth. You better shut your white mouth. You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South, and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you. Listen.
Yeah, so this is what we've been covering for the last few months, Mr. C. The journey of the Hebrews from the first century through the Middle Ages, through their enslavement. And for most of us, we are here in the UK and Europe with some visiting American brothers who come from time to time to tune into the show.
I love that. I love that clip, man. That guy, man, he gives it to them, and you can see one or two of them are uncomfortable in there. They look to the left and to the right, and they're clapping not because they want to.
Right. Yeah. Now the thing is, see, we're going to go a little off piece today with the history talk because I want to establish something very important. We have used on this show the Bible as a reference point, right? To talk about some of the experiences that the Hebrews would have right up to our day. But the guarantee that these things are correct really depends upon whether God himself actually exists.
Right, okay.
You see, if God does not exist,
then you can't get nothing.
You're not getting anything, and everything I've said doesn't mean anything at all. Okay? Now, it's very important to establish this point about the existence of God and to answer some of the perplexing questions that sometimes even in the churches you can't get an answer for. So today I want to talk about science and what science has said, because science makes the claim that God does not exist. In fact,
no, scientists.
Yes, scientists, yes, have said in very boldly decades ago that God is dead. So what we want to do is actually look at science, look at what it is, how science is used, how scientists formulate their understanding, and then we are able then to establish whether God really exists or not. Because remember, what we learn about our existence, we've learned through the school system, we've learned through higher education, and most of that information has come from science. Okay, so let's look at the first slide. Let's just establish, first of all, to see what is science and what is involved. So let's look at this first slide, and we could read that. So we share that with the viewers so the viewers can see it. And if we can just make it a bit bigger, can you see that, Mr. C? I want to just read the very first paragraph of the definition of science.
Okay, so according to the Science Council, science is the pursuit and application of knowledge and understanding of the natural and social world following a systematic methodology based on evidence.
Right. So notice, this is how science is defined. The application of knowledge, understanding of the natural and social world, following a systematic methodology based on evidence. That seems fair enough.
Yep.
Right. And so what you have in our world today is science is effectively the last bastion of argument. So normally you will hear something like, well, scientists have said X, Y, Z. And that is taken as a truth. There is no arguing with what the scientists have said. Right? You watch any television program or news program, it says scientists have found, scientists have discovered. And much of this is portrayed as factual. And because we have been taught to look at science as the de facto truth, whatever science says, we will tend to repeat, and we are educated in this way. Now, this is not to say that science is not truthful. It definitely is. We have learned so much about our world because of science. Next slide. But can all science be trusted? Mr. C, could you just read that headline there for us, please?
How the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a flood of misleading science.
So here we have, in our own mainstream news, something called misleading science. You may recall that when this lockdown first started, the government came and announced the measures that they were going to take to deal with it. And what do they say? We are following the science. That statement ends all arguments about whatever you might feel the COVID is or whether the lockdown was the correct policy. It didn't matter. Once the government said that we are following the science, pretty much that was it. But now, it's now starting to come up that this was based on a lot of misleading science. Next slide. Remember, the government came out and said, that is what we are following. Mr. C, what's the headline on that Telegraph article, please?
It says, why the science underpinning government's slow lockdown release is flawed.
So this is now coming out, right? That the science that the government claims to be following is now coming out to be flawed science. But you see, once you hear we are following the science, then there is pretty much no argument, right? Everybody on Joe Public, everybody's arguing, well, the science is this. This is what scientists have said. But all of a sudden now it's coming out that the science wasn't entirely correct. Next slide. In fact, the science, so-called, was based upon calculations and figures made in the Imperial College in London, right? So there were numbers that were banded around telling the government that X amount of 100,000 people will die if the lockdown is not carried out. That is a science, right? These numbers were figured out in the Imperial College in London. The government said that this is what we're following and we have to go through a lockdown. But Mr. C, what does that Telegraph article tell us?
It says how the UK's COVID reopening has proved Imperial's pessimistic modelling wrong.
Now remember, this is a science, right? This is a science that was carried out at the Imperial College London. The government said we are following this. So this is going to be our policy, a lockdown. But was the science true? Next slide. Here is the gentleman responsible for concocting the numbers. What does it say about him, Mr. C?
It says he needs to go Specsavers. I mean, Professor Lockdown Modeler resigns in disgrace.
So this is the gentleman, a gentleman named Neil Ferguson, who's responsible for the numbers that he claimed would die if the government did not pursue a lockdown procedure. Let's have a look at the, this story a bit more closely. If we can put the next slide up, please. Let's see if you could just look at the first two read the first two paragraphs first, please.
Okay, so Neil Ferguson is the British academic who created the infamous Imperial College model that warned Boris Johnson that without an immediate lockdown, the coronavirus would cause 500,000 deaths and swamp the National Health Service. Johnson's government promptly abandoned its Sweden-like social distancing approach, and Ferguson's model was also influenced the US to make lockdown moves with its shocking prediction of over 2 million Americans dead.
And the last one, sorry, the last one more.
So Johan Giskik, the former chief scientist for the European Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, has...
All right, yeah.
Yeah. We'll just wait. It will go in a second.
Yeah.
Or if you can just lift it slightly for us, please, management.
It's okay. I'll read the rest of it. It says that this Johan Giskik, the former chief scientist for the European Centre of Disease Control and Prevention, has called Ferguson's model the most influential scientific paper in memory. He also said it was sadly one of the most wrong. So this is the science. This is the science that we are programmed.
I'll tell you one thing that he's got right.
Is that him?
That's him. Yeah, you know where to find the good stuff where you want it, though, innit, Neil?
So the question is, in this first example, can the science or scientists be trusted? Absolutely. Are they the de facto truth in terms of information and knowledge? In fact, most people are not even aware of how scientists actually get paid. Now, this is very interesting. We're going to look at something in a second. How scientists actually earn their money. It's not like a regular job, what they do. Let's have a look at the next slide. Let's see if you can read the headline of this next slide. It's quite interesting.
UK science rises up against looming multi-billion-pound cuts to research.
Right. So one of the major areas in which scientists get their money or their grants is through government. They also can get it through companies who want them to do certain types of research, but a lot of their money comes through government-funded grants. Now, why is this important? Let's have a look at the next slide. Let's bear this in mind. Did you see? Read that?
Yeah, so before you read another health study, check who's funding the research, 100%.
So the issue here is, whoever's funding the research, they're not giving you the money as a scientist for nothing. They want a specific set of results. This particular article in The Guardian goes on to talk about how certain food companies employed scientists to do some research to say that their foods were not harmful when it really was. Right? But you also have this situation with governments. When governments hand over money to scientists, they want specific results because government's job is to enact policy. So what I'm trying to share with you is this idea that not all science is truthful science. Next slide. A report came out a little while ago. If we can just have next slide up, please. Yeah. So a report came up a little while ago talking about sponsorship bias in clinical research. So again, the companies that pay the money to these researchers need to have the type of results they want in order to promote their products. That's how this works. This is how this works. Again, not all science. Science is a good thing. It's helped us to understand the world in which we live. But I'm trying to show you another aspect of science that you may not be aware of. And that is a science of agendas. And where scientists get their money from plays a part in the results that they produce.
Yeah, most definitely.
Next slide.
We'll see that definitely with the World Health Organization as well.
Right. Mr. C, would you read that? This is from a medical journal, PubMed.gov. Would you just read that headline, please?
Those who have the gold make the evidence. How the pharmaceutical industry biases the outcomes of clinical trials of medications.
You can't make this up. If I had said this just out of my mouth without actually providing some documentation that you could look at, people would probably say you're mad.
Yeah, listen, my brother, this is the thing, and you see, I don't know whether it's because I've always watched, my parents have always forced me to watch things like Columbo. I've done a bit of accounting in my life. You follow the paper trail. And if you follow the paper trail, that's all you have to do. You connect the dots and it's very, very easy to see what's what. Very, very easy to see what's what.
Yes. So, yeah. So those who pay for this research, right, or those who have an interest in benefiting from these results, these are the ones that are generally going to promote the policy, right? Now, just to prove that, let's look at this next slide. I mean, I think a lot of you know this already, but it's good to actually see it again. Next one, please. You know that there are various interests in science. Next slide. There you go. Mr. C, read that first, please.
Revealed Sir Patrick Vallance has 600,000 shareholding in firm contracted to develop vaccines.
Now, bear in mind, please, our viewers, this is the chief scientific officer. You've seen his face roll out with Boris when they often have announcements to make. This man has shares in the companies that are involved in producing the vaccine. In fact, when the government was approached, when Matt Hancock was questioned about this, Matt Hancock said that there was no conflict of interest. This is the chief scientific officer.
Well, you see, really and truly, he was right. You see, he is 100% right. There's no conflict, because when you're in conflict, you're not balanced. But they know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
They know exactly what they're doing, so there's no conflict. It's business. It's good business as far as they're concerned.
Right. So let's just pause here for a second. I want to show you a pattern of what's going on. So we have been indoctrinated that whenever we hear the word science, it is the de facto truth. You cannot argue against the science. The science is pushed out to the public. Okay? The public then generally agrees with the information. And then, basically, once they agree, policies can be enacted. Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. My battery's running out, and I've just got to get my charger and come back. 1 second, Mr. C.
Oh, that's good, man. So yes, so ladies and gentlemen, as we can see here, Tony has pointed out some very, very interesting points of view. Nikita says, in my opinion, them scientists are the seed of Satan. Again, scientists still trying to find the God particle. Check out what these mad scientists doing with CERN. They want to release gross darkness. Phil says, no, because they refuse to have an open debate with documents and scientists with different points of view. We must listen only to mainstream. Kiss my teeth. Power, money, control. The root word for pharmaceutical, pharmacon, pharmacus, pharmakia, witchcraft, poison, potions, spells, sorcerer. And that's why they don't teach Latin at schools anymore, because when you find out the root of words, you become wise beyond the false education that you have in a normal school. Tony.
Yes, see. So look at the pattern. The science is the evidence which is provided to the public. An argument is made that we must follow a certain policy because of the science. The public agree to the policies. Sometime later, it comes out that the whole science was wrong in the first place. But guess what? It's too late.
The policies are in place.
Because one, they're in place, but two, the lockdowns already occurred and people are actually having their shots right now. That's a personal decision. We're not trying to advocate either way on this show, but I'm just trying to show you a pattern. Mm-hmm. So we have science goes to the public. The public agrees. The policies are implemented. Sometime later, it turns out that the science is false. Now, I'm telling you this because this is not the first time this has happened. This is part of a technique that has been going on for over 100 years with regard to science. Next slide. One of the earliest times in history where science was used to program a public was with this particular book here, written by Charles Darwin, called The Origin of Species. This book set out to explain the origins of mankind on planet Earth. And through its science, it attempts to demonstrate that man came from
monkey,
from an organic soup, and then developed into men today. Now let's look at the next slide, please. Mr. C, I want to show you something very interesting. People know about this book, but they don't actually know its proper title. So if you can read the whole title on that page, please.
The Origins of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life.
So most people wouldn't know this title. They only know the title, The Origin of Species. But notice it is called the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Now here's a quick competition. Kids, where are black people in this favored race that Charles Darwin is talking about, do you think? And who are the most favored race? But this is the science, the foundation of science that has been taught in schools for generations. Next slide. This is what we are meant to believe. This is science. This is what scientists tell us is how men and women actually got to be on planet Earth. In fact, this science had no evidence to back up what it was saying. But they did something very, very tricky. 20 years after this particular theory was made mainstream. Let's look at the next slide. Something tricky happened, Mr. C, where basically the public was made to believe that men actually originated from apes. Now, here's an article talking about 5 of the most famous scientific hoaxes ever pulled on the public. Next slide. If you could read that for us, Mr. C, from the top.
Piltdown Man. For fossil hunters, discovering caveman remains is like striking gold. Charles Dawson, or should it be Darwin? Charles Dawson must have thought all of his birthdays had come at once when in 1912 he found the Piltdown Man in a gravel pit in Piltdown, England. With a human-like head and an ape-like jaw, many scientists believed it was the missing link between apes and humans. For 40 years, the Piltdown Man was on display in London. However, following scientific testing in 1953, the specimen was revealed as a rudimentary forgery. The skull may have been a prehistoric human, but the jaw belonged to a modern-day orangutan. What the dickens?
So scientific fraud is nothing new.
Yeah.
The idea that, you see, remember when we looked at the earliest definition of science, it said science, but is one of the criteria for science is the provision of evidence. There was no evidence. And Piltdown Man came to end all argument. So Piltdown Man was allegedly the link between apes and humans. So it was that intervening period as an ape was turning into a man, they found this skull. But guess what? It was fake. Next slide. So where do we stand today with this theory of evolution? Mr. C, what does it tell us, what we told here?
We still have not found the missing link between us and apes.
So if we still haven't found a link between us and apes, and the definition of science requires us to provide evidence, and we don't have evidence, is the theory of evolution scientific?
Good question.
Since science requires evidence, and we don't have evidence, is the theory of evolution, in other words, the idea that men came from apes, is that science? Well, clearly not. It's not. Not from the definition that they have given us. But guess what, Mr. C? We have this pattern playing out again. The science is put out to the public. A policy based upon this science goes mainstream. Years later, it is revealed we don't have any evidence for this science that we claim. However, generations of young people have been taught that men came from apes. Damage done. It doesn't matter now that you find out that this whole science was flawed, because now this is in your brain.
It's just like smoking, isn't it? That there was no mention of nicotine, cancer, etc., etc. We've got a whole population addicted to a substance, and then when it comes out that this is bad for you, you know, put warning labels on packets. It's too late. People are addicted. People are now spending, what is it, £20 for a pack of cigarettes now?
Right.
With pictures of damaged kidneys, lungs, death on there, and yet they're so programmed into the cigarettes they will still smoke them.
Right.
I'm just using that as an example. I'm not having a go at any of the cigarette smokers. So we're just using that as an example.
Right. And you see, this is all backed up by the news and the media. When you're watching a wildlife show and, you know, someone like David Attenborough comes on and he says, well, you know, looking at some fish millions of years ago, this fish developed gills that allowed it to live at the bottom of the ocean, and it also developed its own eyes so that it could see in total darkness. This whole evolution thing is pushed constantly onto the public. when astronomers have shows, the sky at night, and they talk about the stars, they said, oh, millions of years ago when the Big Bang Theory hit off, none of which has evidence, but all of which are presented as fact, pushed mainstream into the schools. So generations of people believe this science is real.
Mm-hmm.
This is an age-old trick. In fact, so much so, let's look at the next slide. The theory of evolution has led people to actually believe that humans are even animals. Like you often hear people say, oh, we're animals, aren't we? But there's no scientific basis for that statement.
Animalistic behavior.
Right. What does that the headline there say, Mr. C, in the front of Science Daily News?
It says memory from stimulus sequences distinguishes humans from other animals.
Right. So this article goes on to show how humans are far superior to animals. Animals are not on a human level. But evolution gives you this idea that since we are from animals, then we are. Right? Next slide. Here's an interesting question mainstream media is asking now, Mr. C. 150 years later. What question are they asking?
Did Charlie Boy Darwin get it wrong?
So now they want to talk about of course, it's too late. Generations of people have been educated in the theory of evolution. So they're going to say, no, of course it's not wrong. And scientists, philosophers go out of their way to make sure that they uphold, or now they call it neo-Darwinism, new Darwinism. In other words, they now say, well, since Darwin's time, things have developed and they have new explanations of how life came about on the planet. But was it based upon science? Where is the evidence? Well, science says we must provide evidence.
Well, Jimmy Reese was saying, me can tell you about the Big Bang Theory and I can prove what I know.
Right, okay.
It'd be interesting to know if what you can prove is based on other scientists' research.
Yeah.
Or not.
Okay.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to have the conversation, Jim. We might get you on.
So let's look at the
next week or whenever. But anyway, continue, Tony. Sorry.
Next slide. Again, a science journal. No, go. Next one, please.
It was saying, why aren't all primates evolved into humans?
Which is an obvious question. Right? Which is an obvious question. So can we go back to that, please? Thank you. Right, that's it right there. So that's an obvious question which everybody asks. Why don't we see apes turning into men today? So we don't have the link between apes and men, and we don't see it happening today. Where is the evidence? The evidence is the science. Well,
what it is, you've got different types of genes, haven't you, Tony? So that gene which developed from ape into human has now evolved, so that doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
And then obviously you had some other subdivisions of that ape which are now giving you your orangutan, your baboon, your cheetah, your chimpanzee, your gorilla, your woman with who still want to go Hackney Market with this thing on anyway. Yeah. So that's one of their arguments.
But arguments for the science requires proof. If mainstream media are now coming out and arguing whether or not he was right or did he get it wrong, there is a problem. Next slide, please. We're having a little problem with the slides at the moment. Looks like. Can we have the next slide? Next one. Again, was Charles Darwin wrong? 1,000 eminent scientists go public with doubts on evolution theory. So even in-house, amongst scientists themselves, they can't agree. Where's the evidence? So what are we saying here? We're saying here basically that although science has done a lot of good, we can see that science can also be used as tools of propaganda. And we have been programmed as a public whenever we heard the word science or scientists, that is the last word in any debate. There is no discussion after that because scientists have spoken. Scientists are the high priests of knowledge, and you mustn't go against the high priest. It doesn't matter how they use that knowledge, who sponsors that knowledge. You cannot debate scientists, and you've been taught that all your life through the schools. Next slide. And the next slide again, please. Next one. Right. See, can we just read that definition of science again, please, just to remind our viewers of what science really is?
Of course. So again, taken from the Science Council, science is the pursuit and application of knowledge and understanding of the natural and social world following a systematic methodology based on evidence.
Right, so following a systematic methodology based on evidence. If there's no evidence, if any part of that definition is missing, that is not science. You may have been taught that science. You have gone to school and seen textbooks with ape-like men walking about called Neanderthals, fighting with dinosaurs, but you've never actually been exposed to any evidence that proves that this is a fact. Now, here's the thing. Next slide, please. Here's the thing, Mr. C. When approaching these types of matters, we're not scientists, right? We don't have access to the information that scientists have. But what we do have, and what we should use when approaching these subjects, are three things: logic, common sense, and an open mind. So you can take off your religious hat, your church hat. You can take off your programmed, indoctrinated science hat, and just approach a matter logically. Does this make sense? Even though you may not know anything about the information, these three keys will help you to come to a closer understanding of truth than the propaganda that you're constantly being fed throughout your whole lifetime. Logic, common sense, open mind. Next slide. Now we're going to get to Jemmy's favorite subject.
Oh dear.
Mr. C, can we just read that paragraph, please?
So this is talking about the Big Bang theory. The history of the universe started with the Big Bang 1 million years ago. How was our universe created? How did it come to be the seemingly infinite place we know of today? And what will become of it ages from now? These are questions that have been puzzling philosophers and scholars since the beginning of time, and led to some pretty wild and interesting theories. Today, the consensus among scientists, astronomers, and cosmologists. What is going on with my father? Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, Tuesdays are a long day for me. Today, the consensus among scientists, astronomers, and cosmologists is that the universe as we know it was created in a massive explosion that not only created the majority of matter, but the physical laws that govern our ever-expanding cosmos.
Thank you. So this expression, the Big Bang, was an expression coined by an astrophysicist called Fred Hoyle. He came up with that term. And if you're looking at your screen now, you're looking at a diagram where it looks like a triangle on its side or a Christmas tree on its side. The point part is where the explosion, according to scientists, where that took place. So that was the beginning of an explosion, out of which matter came and subsequently developed into the universe that we have today. Again, this is what scientists generally agree on. This is what is generally taught in schools. And when you watch TV, when it talks about the universe and space, you'll always hear this expression, the Big Bang. But again, are there any questions about this theory? Well, a scientist called Brian Clegg wrote a very interesting book where he discussed this. If we look at the next slide, please. Mr. C, would you read that first, please?
Before the Big Bang, the Prehistory of Our Universe by Brian Clegg. I've had one or two criticisms of the way I stress in Before the Big Bang that cosmology hasn't entirely thrown off its reputation of being speculative. Cosmologists like to think that they are now mainstream scientists, and the Big Bang Theory is as straightforward as any other base idea in physics, but it really isn't true. I'm not trying to knock cosmology. It's a subject I love, but I think we ought to be honest and recognize how much is built on the assumption, hope, or on tradition. How much of it is built on assumption, hope, and tradition.
Right, okay, that's good. So look, so here's the point. Again, just like with the theory of evolution, there are many who don't accept the Big Bang Theory as fact. In fact, many view it as speculation and assumption, not evidence. Next slide. He goes on, the same author. Mr. C, read that, please.
Most of our ideas about how the universe has developed depend on the application of general relativity to rather crude models of what the universe is like. And to make those models work, huge assumptions that really can't be tested are applied.
Thank you. So again, assumptions, speculations, hopes. How is this science? But hold on a second. It's already been taught in schools for generations. And everybody knows the Big Bang Theory is a fact. Next slide. But now, Mr. C, again, years later, what are scientists now starting to say?
It is time to dethrone the Big Bang Theory. So in cosmology, the Big Bang Theory is king. It wasn't always that way, but over the years, the evidence has mounted, and for the most part, astronomers are convinced it's the best we have.
Right. So again, under the guise of science, we have speculation and we have assumptions about how the universe came into being. But is that the definition of what science is? Let's have a look at the next slide. Mr. C, I'm going to keep going back to his definition because it's very important for us to remember. The definition of science. Can we read that again?
Again, science is the pursuit and application of knowledge and understanding of the natural and social world following a systematic methodology based on evidence.
Right. So, from the very start of our conversation this evening, we were talking about how science has moved us through this world. It's advanced us to the step that we're at now. Right? We've learned many things through science, and science has proved to be mostly good. But what we are now seeing is that, as well as that, science has also been used as an agenda. We're going through that now, right? With this whole lockdown thing we're going through. A lot of that started very early on during the days of Darwin, when he wrote that book, The Theory of Evolution, which was standardized and taught in schools. Along with that, we also now have the Big Bang Theory, which again is purported as science, which attempts to tell us how the universe came into being. Now, years later, scientists are now going back and saying, well, we might need to get rid of this because much of this is nothing but speculation and assumption. Next slide. In fact, one of the greatest living modern day scientists who recently passed away, Stephen Hawking, made this bold claim, Mr. C.
He says, there's no God. No one directs our fate, says Stephen Hawking's in final book.
Thank you. Now, this quote ties up everything we're talking about in science. Why? Because the whole point of why you're supposed to believe in evolution and the Big Bang Theory is because it dismisses the notion of there needing to be a God. You see, if you accept the fact that men came from apes or that the universe came from explosion, there's no need for a God. there's no need for you to accept supernatural intelligence, a designer. You don't, because science has disproved it. But we've seen that science can be flawed. And we've seen, with regard to our existence as human beings, the science is nothing more than speculation and assumptions. And much of what the so-called evidence has been faked. And the bottom line is that you are not supposed to believe in some form of superhuman intelligence that put this all together. That is the real motive for a lot of this flawed science that's being presented to you when it comes to human existence. You don't realize that because we have been indoctrinated as to always accepting what science says. Man has a PhD. He's done so much years of research. He says, well, no, there is no God. Well, then that's it then, isn't it?
Yeah, boy.
Their own community disagreed with them. Their own community disagrees that the theory of evolution has any scientific fact. They disagree that the Big Bang Theory, it is not a universal truth. And you see, I've got so much more to talk about this subject, but we can't, I'm going to have to hold it here because...
Yeah, of course, man.
We're going to have to take this into next week because I'm going to show next week what science does know about the universe and mankind and show how it actually ties in with a creator. In fact, it takes more faith and brainwashing to believe in this human version of creation, or rather evolution, than it does to believe in a creator. I'm going to talk about who is God, where did God come from, who made him. We're going to talk about time. We're going to talk about string theory. We're going to talk about gravity. We're going to talk about the law of thermodynamics. We're going to cover what is known as scientific fact and compare that to the existence of God. But I had to lay the foundation this week, Mr. C.
You laid it, mate.
I hope that the viewers were able to sort of follow along and not be too bored. But we needed to do this because we don't realize how brainwashed we are and how we go along. You see a man in a white coat, he says he's done this experiment, we've seen the evidence, and then we just believe it. But if you look in their own community, they are divided about what they claim to be evidence. So next week, ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please come back here again. We're going to talk about the existence of God through science. What is already known about science, I'm going to share with you this whole idea about where God comes from, because you know a lot of people say, well, if there's a God, who made him? Where does he come from? We'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about string theory. We'll talk about time, space, and matter. We'll talk about three-dimensional, four-dimensional space, but all in a very easy to understand way so that our viewers can understand what and who this creator is, because this is very much tied into the history, Mr. C. If we are the chosen people, then we must be the chosen people of someone who exists, not someone who's been dismissed. So, tune in again next week, ladies and gents, boys and girls, and we'll be here once again to sort of conclude this whole scientific discussion and show your part in God's purpose.
Well. Adrian Carlos says, never bored, Mr. T. Nikki says, great show. Jemmy says, don't leave out the multiverse theory. Can't wait for next week. Eshe Escoffrey says, man cannot see, hear, or feel everything in the world or universe or design equipment that measure science that is based on hypothesis. So well done. Yeah, Tony, again, man, using a very, very different strain to bring enlightenment to people today. So fantastic. Rudolph Henderson says, nice one, Tony. And Jemmy Reese says he's on his way to your yard now. So the police will be waiting for you, Jemmy. They'll be waiting for you. They'll be waiting for you. Adrian, Nikita says, Adrian, look it up. It's deep. Man is really trying to play God. Yes, they definitely are. So that's in reference to CERN, which stands for, Nikki, if you could let us know what it stands for. But CERN, for those of you who are curious, look it up. But again, it's man playing God, literally. So look, ladies and gentlemen, that's been a very, very, very enlightening week. Please remember, we're only here for another 4 or 5 more weeks before we're taking that well-deserved break, finishing up on June the 29th and restarting when in September, Tony?
I think it's the first week when the kids go back, isn't it? The first Tuesday of that.
First one. So CERN stands for is the Large Hadron Collider.
Collider, yeah.
Collider, okay, yeah. As in kaleidoscope. Okay.
Yeah, the word CERN is a French word. I've never heard anybody pronounce it. It's like Central Fatigue or something like that. It's all the acronyms are I believe in French.
Collider. Okay, so yes, ladies and gentlemen, all that is left for us to say, please continue to like, subscribe, and to share. We will be doing part 2 of this next week, ladies and gentlemen. So please make sure you stay tuned, you stay locked in. Final words, Tony?
The first will be last.
And the last shall be first.
Good night.
Take care. I mean, we're done. We're finished. I'll tell you.